What happens when the world of Bret Easton Ellis collides with the twisted television universe of Ryan Murphy? You get the Shards, a story filled with wealthy teenagers, secret relationships, obsession, murder, and a serial killer who may be much closer than anyone realizes. And after the first 2 episodes, one thing is becoming very clear. The series follows a fictionalized version of Bret Easton Ellis during his senior year at the elite Buckley school in 1980s Los Angeles. On the surface, Bret has everything: money, friends, popularity, beautiful people around him. But underneath that perfect lifestyle, Bret is hiding several secrets. He's dating Debbie, but he's attracted to her father, Terry, and secretly involved with boys at school, including Matt and Ryan. He's also obsessed with Susan Reynolds, the school's ultimate girl, even though she's dating Tom. And then Robert Mallory arrives. That's when everything starts falling apart. The story begins with Bret watching The Shining. As a huge fan of Stephen King's novel, Bret is disappointed by the movie's differences from the book. But the movie isn't what stays with him. It's a stranger sitting nearby. Bret sees Robert Mallory and immediately becomes fascinated by him. There's something about Robert that Bret can't explain. Months later, Robert suddenly appears at Buckley as a new student. And Bret knows exactly who he is. There's just one problem. Robert says he has never seen The Shining. He denies being at the theater. To everyone else, this sounds like a misunderstanding. To Bret, it's a warning. Because Robert doesn't just look familiar. He seems to know things about Bret that he should know. And instead of ignoring him, Bret becomes obsessed. Bret starts following Robert, trying to figure out who he really is. Robert's background doesn't help. His parents divorced. His mother died. His aunt took him in. He was supposedly kicked out of his previous school. But every explanation sounds rehearsed. And Robert seems to enjoy watching Bret struggle to figure him out. Their conversations are strange because they constantly move between hostility, flirtation, and psychological games. At one point, Robert tells Bret, "When you talk to me, you're really talking to yourself, dude." That line tells us almost everything about their relationship. Robert may be manipulating Bret. He may be attracted to him. He may be hiding something. Or he may simply understand Bret better than Bret understands himself. And that's what makes him so dangerous. But while Bret is focused on Robert, something much worse is happening around him. Los Angeles has a serial killer. The Trawler doesn't simply murder people. The killer appears to be studying them. Pets disappear. Medicine cabinets are disturbed. Victims receive terrifying silent phone calls. And eventually, people start disappearing. The police discover mutilated bodies, and the violence becomes increasingly disturbing. But Bret's friends aren't particularly concerned. That's one of the strangest things about the story. People are disappearing. Animals are being killed. The school mascot has been desecrated. And mysterious calls are coming in. Yet Bret's friends seem more interested in parties, relationships, drugs, and their social status. Bret is the one person who seems to understand that something is seriously wrong. But there's a problem. He's so distracted by his own secrets that he's beginning to miss the obvious clues. Bret isn't exactly the perfect detective. He's hiding his sexuality. He's dating Debbie while secretly seeing Matt and Ryan. And he's becoming increasingly obsessed with Robert. Ryan has already started pulling away from him. Matt is becoming increasingly distant. And Bret doesn't know how to deal with any of it. His relationship with Matt is particularly important. Matt is one of the few people Bret genuinely seems to care about. But Bret still tells him they need to stop seeing each other. Matt pretends he's fine. He's not. And then Matt disappears. That's when Bret's private problems suddenly become part of the larger mystery. Then there's Debbie's father, Terry. Terry is a Hollywood producer, and Bret hopes he can help him sell the novel he's writing. So when Terry offers to option Bret's book, it seems like an incredible opportunity. But there's something uncomfortable about Terry. He clearly recognizes that Bret isn't completely straight, and his questions become increasingly personal. Bret knows the situation is strange, but he wants the book deal. And that's one of the central ideas of the Shards. Everyone is hiding something. Everyone is pretending. And sometimes the characters are so obsessed with maintaining their own image that they fail to see the danger directly in front of them. Susan eventually announces that Matt has been missing for 5 days. For everyone else, this is shocking news. For Bret, it's terrifying. Because Bret knows Matt. He knows where Matt lives. He knows what Matt has been doing. And he knows there is a connection between Matt and him that he cannot reveal. So Bret has to pretend that Matt's disappearance doesn't affect him. But inside, he's panicking. Then he receives something in the mail. A tape. And what Bret hears on that tape changes everything. It's Matt. He's being tortured. The recording reveals that Matt is being forced to consume his own fish and is eventually given a lethal dose of LSD. Bret can barely listen. But the worst part isn't just what happened to Matt. It's what Bret realizes afterward. He should have noticed the warning signs. Matt's missing pets. The strange phone calls. The murders. The increasingly disturbing behavior surrounding them. Bret has been so focused on Robert, Ryan, Susan, Terry, and his own complicated relationships that he failed to connect the dots. And now someone has made sure he hears exactly what happened to Matt. That means the killer may not simply be killing people. The killer may be sending Bret a message. And then another disturbing possibility emerges. A cult-like group known as the Riders of the Afterlife may be connected to the Trawler. If that's true, the situation becomes much bigger than a single serial killer. What if the Trawler isn't one person? What if several people are involved? And what if Robert knows more about the group than he's letting on? This is where the Shards becomes especially interesting, because the series constantly makes us question whether Brett's paranoia is justified. Sometimes he looks like the only person who understands what's happening. Other times, he looks completely obsessed and disconnected from reality. And that's exactly what makes Robert so effective. At this point, we don't have enough evidence to say Robert is the killer, but the show clearly wants us to suspect him. He's mysterious. He's lying about his past. He knows how to manipulate Brett. He appeared immediately after Brett became obsessed with a stranger from the theater, and his arrival coincides with the escalation of the murders. But there is another possibility. Robert may not be the Trawler. He could simply be someone who knows exactly how to get inside Brett's head. And if that's the case, Brett may be making a huge mistake by focusing all his attention on him. Because while Brett is watching Robert, someone else could be watching Brett. That's what makes these opening episodes so effective. The real question isn't simply, who is the Trawler? It's, why does the Trawler seem interested in Brett? The mysterious phone calls, the messages, Matt's disappearance, the disturbing clues, and Robert's sudden arrival. They may all be connected. Brett thinks he's investigating Robert. But what if Robert is actually investigating Brett? What if Brett isn't the detective in the story? What if he's the target? The first 2 episodes of The Shards establish a world where everything looks beautiful on the surface and rotten underneath. The wealthy teenagers have money, cars, parties, drugs, relationships, and everything else they could want. But none of it protects them. In fact, their privileged bubble may be making them even more vulnerable. The show also does a great job capturing the cold, detached atmosphere of Bret Easton Ellis' writing while adding Ryan Murphy's darker visual style. The result is a psychological thriller that isn't interested in giving us easy answers. Robert Mallory is suspicious. The Trawler is getting closer. Matt is gone. The Riders of the Afterlife may be involved. And Brett is slowly realizing that the strange things happening around him aren't random. They're connected. The only question is whether Brett will figure out the connection before the killer reaches him. So, what do you think? Is Robert Mallory really the Trawler, or is Brett looking in completely the wrong direction? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you want the full breakdown of what happens next, make sure you subscribe to Screenscope.